We're glad you could join us tonight for this presentation on combating disinformation at local school board meetings. We're very pleased to have two expert presenters with us today. I'll introduce them in a minute, but you can see them there on your screen. My name is Sue Top. I'm the president of AAUW Naperville area. We're hosting this presentation, and I'd like to thank our co-sponsors who are also some of our sister AAUW branches in the western suburbs, and they include Aurora area, Batavia, Geneva, St. Charles, Downers Grove area, Lombard area, Northwest Suburban, and Wheaton Glen Ellen. And I know that many of you have members from those branches attending tonight, and we're very pleased you could join us. AAUW, for those of you who aren't familiar, it stands for American Association of University Women. It's an organization nationally that's been working for equity since 1881. And we work on a lot of social justice and equity issues. We're very, very supportive of education. And so that was why this topic is of particular interest to us. And without further ado, I guess I'll go ahead. I'd love to introduce our two speakers. First, we're going to hear from Jim McGrath. Both Jim and Joyce come to us from the Northwest Suburbs Organizing for Action group, which is also working with or part of the Illinois Indivisible Social Justice Alliance. They've become experts on this topic and have done a lot of research that they have to share with you. I know that Jim has been an activist for a long time. He works a lot on voting issues, has a lot of information to share, gets very involved in education and helping people understand what the issues are and make informed voting choices. And Joyce is also a mom and an activist, and she's also worked for years on progressive causes and serves on the leadership board of NWSOFA Indivisible. So I think we'll go ahead with that. Jim, take it away, and then Jim will introduce Joyce when her portion of the speech is ready. Thanks.
Okay, so let's get started. So I want to start out first with, there's a couple of terms that we need to get understood first. There's misinformation, which is just, somebody just made a mistake. It's not intentional. What we are going to talk about tonight is this disinformation, which is deliberately deceptive. It's done to mislead people for a reason. Then there's rumors, but even if misinformation is retracted later, it can influence actions, and in people's memory, you remember what you saw, but you don't remember that there was a retraction. So, so one of the things that there are issues that we think are the issues, and this is what parents are doing. They think it's the masks, vaccines, critical race theory, all these issues. But what we're finding is actually these are just dog whistle issues to get people involved. A lot of the parents don't even realize what they're getting involved with, but they're getting involved with these groups to feed this disinformation to school boards. So what is it really about? It's about groups taking control of the school board because they want to take control of the school curriculum. And by doing that, what they're really trying to do is keep a sanitized version of American history. They don't want any talk about slavery or racism or any of that. They want it sanitized. It's about getting their candidates elected to the school board who can then run for higher offices. There's numerous examples of that we've cited on previous sessions that Joyce and I have done. It's about getting parents to remove kids from public schools to enroll them in private schools where they can control or have a better chance of controlling the curriculum, and then eventually defund public schools because of vouchers. So what we're going to talk about is there's a number of well-funded national organizations that have these as their goals, but they want to appear to be grassroots organizations. So there's a loose network of conservative groups tied to major Republican donors. Now, this presentation tends to it's not nonpartisan. We're not going to talk about endorsing any candidates, but because all of this disinformation is coming from conservative groups, I hope this isn't going to offend anybody, but that's the research that we found. So you can see it's leading up. While the parents are drawn by the anger, what they're finding is that these groups are often run by political operatives and lawyers standing ready to amplify what's going on. So that's why I said that earlier, that those words, they're really just dog whistles to get people involved. Now, so what does a school board do? And this is from the Illinois Association of School Boards. It's to provide local citizen control over education at a point as close to the parent and child as possible. Okay, but what is happening? Let me back up. We live in a democracy. We live in a representative democracy, which means we can't have every one of us voting on every issue that comes up before every governmental body, whether it's your village, your library, your school board, wherever. So we elect representatives who are supposed to do our voting for us. But what the goal is, as we go through this, you'll see that these parents organizations want to supersede the school board, and they want to be the end all be all. So, but the most important job is to hire a superintendent. Board members have to know the difference between governance, which is its job, management, which is the administration's job. So now, is it happening locally here? Yes, and this is just a smattering of the ones that we've been made aware of. The first one is in Elmhurst. I'm going to skip down to a couple down here at the bottom. This one here is in Barrington. I attended that meeting. It went on for almost 5 hours. 60 people getting 3 minutes apiece to talk. There had to be an intermission so the police could issue a couple of disruptors out of the meeting. And then just recently, this issue down at Indian Prairie School, where the meeting was disrupted by anti-maskers, and the board had to adjourn after only 5 minutes. So this is happening everywhere. There's stuff in Hinsdale. A couple of weeks ago, Joyce and I went to a meeting at her school district, District 211, where the Proud Boys attended. So we knew that they were supposed to come. Joyce was able to organize a big group. We outnumbered them. They never spoke. We had about 200 people at that meeting. So where did it all start? A guy named Christopher Rufo. And then we're going to talk about critical race theory at this point. So he came up with this idea. Now, critical race theory has been around for decades. But what he did was he changed the meaning. He co-opted critical race theory to mean what he wanted it to mean. So you can see he wants to conflate any number of topics into this new bucket called critical race theory. So anything dealing with race, equity, inclusion, LGBTQ is now part of this so-called critical race theory, based on his work. And this is his quote: "We have successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory, which is ours, into the public conversation, and we're driving up negative perceptions. We will eventually turn it toxic as we put all of the various cultural insanities under that brand." So you can see, it's not, if somebody tries to explain the difference, what is critical race theory, our opinion is don't even try, because they have already taken ownership with all of this disinformation. So more from Christopher Rufo. School districts have been adding diversity and equity training for years. They've been doing it. My school district hired a diversity, equity, and inclusion director 2 years ago. Trump's election in 2016 changed the dynamics around this. Trump ordered an end to diversity and equity training in all federal contracts. I hope you remember that. And that came from Christopher Rufo after he appeared on Tucker Carlson and equated equity and social justice with critical race theory. So you can see how this has become convoluted due to this one guy, Christopher Rufo, at the Manhattan Project. So the other thing that's going on now is a lot of these critical race theory is becoming a GOP proving grounds. What they're trying to do is grow the ranks of Republican politicians by getting parents to join these groups. Again, they may not realize that they're joining these groups, but they become associated with the groups that are showing up at school boards to talk about masking, talk about CRT, talk about vaccinations. Okay. Now, down here at the bottom, Republican Party sees a rich opportunity to build a pipeline of new political candidates. What they're trying to do, again, is get candidates who will run for the school boards, and then they can move into higher offices. So, wealthy Republicans affiliated with, and what they're trying to do is train candidates to run for office as the GOP seeks in a second Tea Party movement. The right-wing campaign to stifle teaching and discussion about racism is fear-mongering. Now, think about the recent election that was in Virginia. Youngkin won because he said he was going to stop any school in Virginia teaching critical race theory. There wasn't a school in Virginia that was teaching critical race theory, but he made people believe that. And when people were interviewed about critical race theory, they didn't know what it meant. They just knew they were against it. And so he ended up winning, and then and then he was able to implement his policies. Now, the left has spent many years and vast funding to stack the local school boards. School boards have been nonpartisan for decades. This is just, and again, a good lie. If you repeat it enough, people will believe it. Now, if you remember, one of the words that I used in the beginning was patriotic. So patriotic is something that it's not patriot. It's their definition of patriot. If you remember the January 6th insurrection, they were referred to by the members as patriots. So be careful when you see the word patriot. Now, this is something from a Republican campaign manager in Connecticut. And her comment was, helping kids of color to feel they belong has a negative impact on white Christian or conservative kids. The Christian movement is taking hold here. One of our part of our presentation that Joyce and I did in our January update for the Social Justice Alliance was to show how a lot of the, and again, I don't know if they realize that they're doing it, but a lot of the religious organizations are supporting stuff like this. Again, I don't know if they realize what they're doing. She said she was misquoted. It was poorly worded when she commented about this. The board chairman questioned her in saying exactly what context would that comment be positive in. Helping kids of color feel they belong has a negative effect on white Christian or conservative kids. Again, this is a white privilege approach. Use the religious right under the guise of protecting children from the supposed threat of critical race theory. Okay, you guys can read that as good. In the hands of right-wing activists pushed by Fox News personality Tucker Carlson, critical race theory as a term has lost all meaning. It lost all meaning is what it originally meant. As I said before, they have put their own meaning to this. So what we try to do is not, when somebody wants to talk about critical race theory, we want to talk about how what we all want for our kids is a good education a complete education. So don't even try to help them redefine critical race theory. You won't be able to do it. Stephen Miller, who you probably remember was one of Trump's aides, helped do a lot of the nonsense at the border. But he's now president of this American First Legal Group. And he's saying that his group is committed to defeating the illegal equity agenda. There is nothing illegal about an equity agenda and poisonous ideology. And again, here's the word indoctrination. Indoctrination is what is being used as their concern about having kids understand our unsanitized history. It's not indoctrination. It's true. It's a complete history. So critical race theory. This again, his comments. None of these are true. But again, if said enough, people believe it. There's a group called Family Research Council. The president is Tony Perkins. He's raising money to promote right-wing takeovers of local school boards. And keep that in mind. Local school boards have, again, been nonpartisan. They haven't had a lot of funding for Democrats or Republicans, but that's changing. That changed at the last municipal election in April of last year, and it will change again in 2023 when we have another municipal election where these school boards are elected. But keep in mind, the goal of these groups is not just the school boards, but what they're trying to do is use the critical race theory as they used it in Virginia to subvert the messages for the 2022 election in November. Okay, he's trying to pose what he's doing as a grassroots uprising. It's not. Again, he's a national organization, but he's trying to say it's grassroots. It's not. He's focusing our national experts to help with resources to replace radical school board members, again, with Christian conservative parents. We are no longer in America just a Christian society, if we have ever been. So you can see where they're trying to go here with So this is Koch is fueling a lot of these organizations. There's a group called Independent Women's Forum, which we'll talk about in a subsequent slide. They want to speak up what's best for my kids, and they want parental choice. Now, parental choice is morphing. And one of the things that Christopher Rufo has, and I don't have it in this presentation, I'm just going to talk about it, but what he's trying to do is change parental choice to something called transparency. And what his hope is that we will object to transparency, because what he really means is parental choice, but he's calling it transparency. And if we object to transparency, then he's going to say, I got you, because you don't want them to be open and transparent. So we're going to have to be careful as that word comes into common usage. The heartfelt appeal is not a product of grassroots groundswell. It's a template to be drafted and circulated. Koch funds over 30 organizations that are writing this kind of disinformation on a regular basis. Okay, here's the Independent Women's Network. You can see they're using patriotic, liberty, freedom. Those are the buzzwords you have to be careful of. They don't mean patriotic women. They mean patriots that do what they want. They don't mean liberty for everybody. They mean their definition of liberty. Same thing with freedom. Now, a lot of the news that you're seeing, again, tends to be what we think is local news. There are organizations that have bought up news outlets around the United States. So Sinclair Broadcasting now owns 185 news stations in 86 markets. We had a meeting with, I don't know if many of you remember Joan Esposito, who was an anchor at one of the Chicago news outlets. She left, and she now has a radio program that she runs out in Western Illinois. But she said she was being handed scripts to read that she was supposed to imply to her viewers that this was either her opinion or the opinion of the station. She said it was neither. It was handed to her by the corporate group that owned her station. So she had to leave. So Sinclair owns 59 Fox, 41 ABC, 30 CBS, 25 NBC stations. So if you're wondering why a lot of this stuff is the same from station to station to station, it's because it is. Okay, and here again, here's a number of the organizations that are producing all this disinformation. So State Policy Network is part of a group called the American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC. ALEC job is they write legislation and they hand it off to state legislators to bring and propose as a bill for their state. So again, if you're wondering why a lot of this voter suppression legislation in states sounds similar, it's because it is. It comes from a source called American Legislative Council or other sources like that. Illinois Policy Institute, they want to retake control of schools. This group, this guy, John Tillman, he has this group called Think Freely, Crowd Scout, Illinois Opportunity Project, Government Accountability, Justice Liberty, Franklin Center. All of these are organizations that he runs. Awake Illinois. This is something that was started in Naperville. I'm sure you guys are aware of this. Sharon Adcock, after she lost her school or bid for school board, she started Awake Illinois. Illinois Parents Union. The balance of power in Illinois is destructively skewed to powerful teachers and unions and administrators. I take issue with that comment. Leadership Institute, training the next generation of conservative candidates, Turning Point USA, No Left Turn in Education. You can see all of these groups, they're out there producing all this disinformation. So it's hard to keep up. It's hard to keep up. For Joyce and me, it's almost a full-time job to keep going with this stuff. Moms for Liberty has an interesting approach. They started a couple months ago a kind of a bounty. The first person to report a teacher who was talking about racial issues would be awarded $500. So they put a bounty out for their members against the teachers that their kids were going to. Then there's Parents Defending Education. Their goal is to reclaim our schools from activists. That's us. Okay, now here's something that's alarming. It's not just school boards. We have to pay attention to all these municipal elections. Who sits on the board of your local library can mean the difference between a thriving library and a community resource being pulled apart brick by brick. That's what's happening at Niles Public Library. Now, at the last election, April of 2021, they had only 8.4% of the eligible voters who voted. Many of the ballot, were uncontested. The election changed everything. Over the next few months after the installation of the board, library funding was cut, hours reduced to below standard level. The library director quit, and essential services to the community shuttered. All of a sudden, the people of Niles started going, what's going on with our library? Well, this is what Joyce and I are trying to do, is make sure people, you have to get out, you have to pay attention, you have to vote. So here again, they're running small boards, destroying the beloved in the name of white supremacy. The nice word is white privilege, but this is what you call it what it is, white supremacy. It could happen here. Now this is something that's going on in Indiana right now, and this came from a comment posted in a Metro East progressive group. So they pay attention to what's going on. They had found this in Indiana. If this bill is passed, educators won't be able to teach divisive concepts. What is a divisive concept? Is that just race? Is it evolution versus creativity? Those kind of issues can even from science. So parents have to approve teachers' lessons before the school year starts. Now remember what I said at the beginning, what the school board is supposed to do. The school board is supposed to represent the parents, and the school board doesn't approve the lesson plans, the administration does. But what they want to do is they want parents to supersede the school board and the administration and approve the lesson plans. They can't help kids that have mental problems or they're in crisis without permission from the parents. I had to look up what TLDR, too long didn't read. That's what that means. Apparently the bill is very long. I did not read the bill, but again, here it's falling in line with white Christian extremist ideology. So this is, again, they're trying to dismantle the public education system to move kids into private schools, because eventually will be the only option that kids might be able to see. If you don't think it'll happen here in Illinois, well, let's just all of us stay alert. If this happens, if a bill like this tries to be passed, it probably won't get very far in Springfield because of our legislators that we have there now. But this is, Joyce and I will be keeping track of things like this going forward. So this is something that was in the December NEA magazine. My wife is a former teacher, so she still gets the NEA magazine, and occasionally I read it, and this time I read it and I pulled this out of it. So what are they doing? They're using the media to drum up a culture war around race and gender issues. CRT, it comes to mind. So they're using the media to beat the drum, okay? And then they win elections by stoking fear around these issues. Again, that's what happened in Virginia. Let's not let it happen here in Illinois, okay? They frame attempts to update the curricula as an attack on American values. Let's rephrase that. Attack on Christian American values, on white privilege values. That's what they really mean. Then they're going to demand vouchers for privately managed charter schools or public, to defund public schools. And they want to support politicians at every level, push cuts for education, unaccountable charter schools. I was at a school board meeting, and the first time when the finance director introduced the proposed budget, one of the school board members said, we need to go through this and see what we can cut. Now, when you realize that over 80% of the budget is locked in because of salaries and contracts, there's not much that you can really do about the budget and cut it. So this is from the NEA president. Dangerous attempts to stoke fears and rewrite history, diminish the injustice experienced by generations of Americans, prevent educators from challenging our students. What kids need to know is history, the true history, okay? So, okay, Joyce, I'm going to turn this over to you. I will turn the pages as you tell me.
Thanks, Jim. That is an incredible amount of information, and it's extremely valuable. The one thing that people sometimes at this point go, oh my God, we're outnumbered, they have more money. Don't despair. There are things that we can do and that we have to do. So this has a lot of information. It's kind of busy, in part so if you wanted to take a screenshot or something. We will make this deck available, and we'll also this is also being recorded, so that'll be shared as well. There are things that you can do. So you can pick a bunch of these things. You can pick one of these things. You can figure out a way to make a difference. So the thing that drives me, and I go to a lot of school board meetings, and I have for many years, if your voice isn't there, who's is going to fill that void? And what drives me. So one of the easiest things you can do is contact your school board by email. You just do a quick search, look for Board of Education, your school district, and you're going to get the links to the school board meetings. You're going to get a link to just contact the board. So you can just very quickly just tell them, I believe in science, I believe in masks, I protect our equity program, whatever it is. Know who your school board is, because that's also going to make a difference. If you have a more equity-based, progressive school board, you're trying to protect them, you're trying to protect your teachers, and you're trying to protect those programs that they're supporting. If you do not have that kind of school board, then you're there for the next election and to let them know that you're paying attention. The other big, huge thing you can do is attend school board meetings. It is absolutely crucial. As Jim mentioned, in my school district, D211, we knew the Proud Boys were coming. We organized, we have a good group that comes every time, and there are times where we just put out the all points and say, we need as many people as possible to support us. But if you attend, again, you can normally do a search, and many of these school boards they'll have live streams of them, but they'll also have the agenda available. So you can print out the agenda and know exactly what's going to be discussed, and you know where the public comments are going to be. Sign up to speak at those school board meetings. It makes a huge difference. If you're not speaking, that vocal minority that is very anti-science, anti-teacher, anti-diversity and inclusion, those are the voices that the community is going to hear who's tuned into that, and that's what the school board's going to hear. So it's really important that you sign up to speak. If you do a quick Google, again, you do that Google search, you'll find out about the meetings, when they are, where they are, and you'll find out about the public comments, what the issues are, how you sign up for them. If they're the beginning or the end of the meeting. A lot of people show up just for the public comments, then the room clears out. And you also know how long you have to speak. So normally a lot of school boards will give you 5 minutes, but if there's a lot of speakers, it'll go down to 3. Just be prepared to cut stuff. I encourage you, I'll type everything up and I'll practice it. I'll practice it with a mask so that doesn't distract me. You can also view the meeting video. So if you can't go to the meeting or you don't feel comfortable going to meeting, you can see the live stream version, and probably most, if not all, the districts in the area in Illinois. But the other nice thing about that is there are some very interesting things that happen towards the end of the meeting. Most people clear out after the public comments. There's a lot of information that goes on at the end of those meetings. There's presentations, and then there's talk about the different groups. We have an equity team. We have a wellness team. They talk about policy changes, and this is where a lot of stuff comes up about policy changes to curriculum. And we're conservative board members, whether there's one of them or it's overwhelming with them, you're overwhelmed with them, you're going to see where they stand and what they're trying to attack or protect. That's where we hear a lot of things about equity program. And I've heard board members talk about white privilege, and you don't want to disturb the white privilege concerns in your community. So pay attention to that. You don't have to be, everybody doesn't have to do everything. So if you can have a few people show up, or, and I would encourage more than one person, but if you have a couple people do that and take notes and share that with your progressive groups, that's a great idea. And then those people can let you know when they need more people to show up. Recognize who's showing up at the meetings. I know some people ask, if you're not in the district, can you show up? Can you speak? Yes, you can. Some groups will suggest that you say if you're in the district or not. It's up to you, but there are some organized groups. So like the Proud Boys, know what kind of shirts they wear. Notice if you have a bunch of people wearing similar shirts with some sort of a logo on it. Just be aware of that. Take pictures so you know who's showing up to those board meetings. You can tell if they're organized. We have a group that likes to come up with big, anti-Fauci signs and stuff. Take pictures of them so you recognize who they are, because they're going to other board members and they're going to show up to your board members multiple times. You want to know who they are. And the other side of that is recognize people that you're allies with. You can tell by maybe how they're reacting to the public comments or to things happening in the meeting, or you'll know because if they're a public speaker. Make sure to connect with those people at the end. A lot of times I'll just write down, I'll take notes during every meeting, either have cards or just write down your contact information on a piece of paper. And because a lot of people leave early, if you don't happen to leave at the same time, you can try and connect with them, or you could just give them a piece of paper with a little note on who you are so you can connect for the future. The biggest thing that we can do is be organized and be connected and build coalitions. That is absolutely critical. Otherwise, it's really hard to have your voice heard. People get very intimidated if it's just them. If you're there with a group of people and and it's a great idea to sit together and just, it just feels safer. You feel like your voice is going to be heard more loudly. It's going to be echoed a little louder. Join, and this goes along with joining other progressive groups that you're aligned with. This is going to really help to get people out when you need them. If you know the Proud Boys are coming, or there's a very specific, there's going to be a special meeting, and it's related to masks or whatever it is. If you have those progressive groups, it's going to help you get those people out to those board meetings when you need them. Some examples: Indivisible, NWSOFA, Democrats. Any progressive types of groups that that support equity and inclusion and science and honest and accurate history. Those are the people you want to align yourself with. I know nobody likes Facebook, and I understand that, but understand that it's a great way to network and to use for organizing. We have a lot of progressive groups in my community Facebook pages. We have them specifically for school districts, they're for science. So join all those. A lot of them are going private now on both sides, simply because there's a lot of people, getting into those pages and sharing screenshots. So once you join those groups and people, they'll tell you about those other groups to get involved with. Signed witness slips. So this is one that gets easily forgotten. This one Facebook page has witness slips, and people will tell you the basic issues. They'll tell you how they suggest you vote and why. It's really, these are very time sensitive. And if you're clued in with maybe a local Indivisible group or even the Democrats, a lot of times those groups will have a quick action item. NWSOFA, we have something called 1 Minute Activist that says, hey, please fill out this witness slip. It's really, really quick and easy to do. Know who your school board members are. You can ask people who you can tell they're speaking, and they'll tell you all about. I know all my school board members very well, personally or just from having observed them. Have a good sense who they are. You can talk to them directly. You can talk to them after meetings. They show up to all kinds of events. You can speak to them there. They may have office hours. Definitely get to know them. Let them know what's important to you, like anybody who's representing you. This is an interesting one. The next one: find professionals, mental health professionals, lawyers, doctors. So have those people speak at meetings if they can. If you have a pediatrician, ask them if they're willing to speak at a school board meeting and talk about the importance of COVID mitigation. They're often the people that get interviewed for newspaper articles. Letters to the editor. Here's just a link for a friend of mine who created a letter to the editor. He does a great job with them. You can use pretty much the same thing you use in public comments at a school board meeting. You can create a letter to the editor about it. Jim and I are involved in another group called the Illinois Social Justice Alliance. We're going to be meeting a week from Saturday, and one of the things we're going to be talking about, somebody who does a really great job on giving tips on writing letters to the editor. Again, create a group to attend school board meetings. Honestly, it's perfectly fine to go by yourself. I think that's a great idea, but it is really a great idea whether it's through your social circle or your activist groups. It can be your neighbors. Tell them that what matters to you, and if it matters, and you're going to know if that matters to them, to say, hey, I think it's really important that we show up. We like sometimes we'll wear similar colors to make it very clear, you know, who we're supporting. It helps us, it's easier for us to find each other. And it's a very visual, and it won't show up on a video, but it's visual to the people in the room, and it's visual to the school board, who they're supporting. Normally they don't, you know, it's you don't want to be respectful, and you don't want to be respectful when people are speaking. You don't necessarily have to, you know, cheer throughout all the talks, but at the end, clap. You know, we do that. We clap at the end of the people that we support. So last time I made a bunch of signs called #Honesty and Education, handed them out to a bunch of my allies so that we could hold those up again to show our support for honesty and education. And note, when you use a hashtag and use any kind of these things in social media, you got to look them up. There's one that looks very similar to honesty and education that is anything but. Online petitions are a great way to provide support. They don't necessarily make their own change, but there's something that you can use in your letters to the editor or in your speaking points to say, you know, we've had 2,100 you know, people sign this petition saying that they believe in masks or you know, equity programs, you know, whatever it is. Find out about your school board curriculum policies. As Jim said, CRT is not taught in lower education, only taught in higher education, if that. We have, so one of the big moves, as Jim mentioned, is they're really trying to push this control, the micromanagement of the school board curriculum. And this is conservative board members are doing that in my district. No, it's not that hard to know what your curriculum is. You can see it if you're a parent. You can log on to your, you know, your whatever tools they use. You can see that teachers are really happy to talk to you about what's going on. They have open houses, and literally the text of, I believe, of all schools, and certainly in my district, you do a search and you can see what the books are that they use. So we have a school board member who always seems very confused by what's in the curriculum. Do a Google search. You can see what books are included. Find out about your district's equity or wellness programs. In D211, my district, we're very fortunate to have, it's a fledgling equity program, and Jim they have a DEO in his school district where I actually went to school. But if they have one, do what you, show up, speak, protect it. You need to protect those programs, whether they're brand new or they've been, you know, entrenched. Most of those programs are not going to have been there very, very long. They have to be protected, and you have to speak up for them and talk about how important they are. Run for office, huge. Every election is a chance for your board to switch like that. And again, I tell people school board should be the most boring meetings on the planet, and they are anything but. And that can switch in an instant either way, you know, based on the next election. So if even think about running for office, we have some resources on that. You can let us know, and we'll figure out a way to get you some support. You do not have to do that all alone. And I will tell you a great resource if you want to run for office is you talk to a school board member who's sitting now, who you admire or you have you think highly of. They'll talk to you. Find progressive people to run for office. If you're not able to run or you're not willing to run, and you don't necessarily have to commit. You can find out about it and then decide. But if you're not willing to, start looking around. Look around who's going to those meetings or who you know locally, who you see speaking up, and see if they're willing to run. You'd be surprised how many people maybe are thinking about it, but they're not likely to unless somebody approaches them. Sign up for webinars on topics, even if you can't make the event. Events like this, these are awesome. And then we have some other resources on the next slide. I've signed up for like 3 meetings a day. Obviously, you can't make them all, but you're gonna get in their queue, and hopefully you're gonna be able to make it, or they'll share slides with you, or you'll be able to see a recording. It's just a great way to be connected and share some more resources. Again, find allies at board meetings. FOIA requests. So this one it kind of goes both ways. This is a Freedom of Information Act request, and you can submit that to your school board and ask for information. A lot of conservatives are using this to basically troll and harass the staff. I have seen FOIA requests that say, please give me every email that had the word mask in it for the past 2 years. That's not a reasonable request, I don't think, but if you're sending something to a school board, be very respectful. because know that your whatever you sent to them could show up in a FOIA request. But on the other hand, you can also make FOIA requests. If you have a board member who's voting against everything, or a board member like I've seen who basically votes present for almost every single vote, you can FOIA request and find that out for the next election. Be a troll. So we know that people kind of infiltrate those private Facebook groups on both sides. Let's use it to our advantage. You can get screenshots of what they're planning. That's how people find out that the Proud Boys are going to show up to a school board meeting or what's happening. And again, share, collaborate, network. Cannot emphasize this enough. Definitely, it's a great way. It makes you feel more involved in your community the more you just collaborate, network with people that you have common goals with. You'll be amazed at how many wonderful people you're going to meet, how much energy they have. It's going to make it a lot more fun as well, just because you're going to meet so many great people. But in order to make change, we have to be organized to do this. And absolutely, as Jim said, you got to get out to vote and make sure people are registered to vote. Right now, petitions are going around to get candidates on the ballots. Make sure you sign those. We in Palatine Township, we're going to have a drive-through petition on this Saturday, actually. Okay. Messaging. So some things about messaging. Again, you can we'll share this slide and everything as well. But be inclusive. We're not looking to be that's the other side. We want to make sure that we have an accurate and honest education for all our kids. All children benefit from an equity program and an honest, accurate education. Flip the script, like Jim said. There are certain terms that are used, like freedom, choice, parental freedom. These terms are being used by the other side because they sound so great, and that's an easy way that they kind of pull people in without them even realizing it. So you can change that by saying we want freedom to pursue honest and accurate education. Say things that you are for, we're not just speaking out against, but we're for a lot of positive things: diversity, equity, inclusion. We want that. We want to have diversity in our staff. Keep repeating those things. We need to keep talking about those things that are important. Use the active voice just for messaging. Don't amplify the opposition. We don't want to spend all our time talking about CRT. Honestly, one of the many nice things about the mask mandate is we didn't need to talk about masks because it was a given. Unfortunately, that now has changed. But again, don't talk too much about things like CRT. Talk about the positives of the equity program. Focus on the kids. Call them out if they're lying about something. And history and sex ed, and I think Jim had mentioned this, that's really the areas that they're heading to really, that's kind of the ultimate goal, is to deny LGBTQ rights and deny talking about race and things like that. There's a bill, SB 818, that came out last year that basically is, promoting the positives, talking about race, talking about LGBTQ rights. But that's done in an age-appropriate information. You're going to hear a lot of parents talk about on the other side about how it's, porn and, their kids are being made to feel bad. That's simply not true. Okay, next one. And again, this will be in the next, we'll share this. So I included a lot of the full links just if you want to do a screenshot if you wanted. But these are some messaging resources that are really great that we've already gone through and vetted. Honesty in Education, Race Forward Guide to Counter Narrating Attacks on CRT. Again, pro-racial justice, pro-equity conversations. Just different talking points you can win. Towards the end, there's some real great ones. Words that win. There's a video that is outstanding about how the, kind of talking aligned with what Jim was talking about, the dark money's influence on public education. Again, hashtag honesty in education and support our schools. These are just some public comment samples. So, and people are more likely to take action, certainly if you're asking them just to email a school board. So if you can give them something to say, and I know, the more you can make it a little more personal, that certainly helps. But if you're emailing the school board, they're keeping track of how many pros and cons they're getting on different issues. So if you can share this in your groups and say, please email the school board today, this is at stake, whatever it is, and share some text. So you can start with these for public comments. Children deserve an honest education about race and racism in this country. Attempts to squash these conversations are attacks on a multiracial democracy, justice, and community. Again, we want to make sure that we keep promoting and making things inclusive. So this is something, and we're going to have Terry Meyer, who has some great background in journalism and in writing. She's going to be speaking at the Illinois Social Justice Alliance meeting that Jim and I will be presenting at on September 19th. So you can drop a note if you want more information on that. Writing a great letter to the editor. So she has it kind of broken down in what you need to do, what you want to say, being not emotional. And that's really important in a letter to the editor, is trying to make it more factual. People are going to read it a little more seriously. Make sure you have facts in there, and again, non-emotional, fact-based. That's a great formula for letter to the editor, and you can use this also for public comment. Running for office, again, so important. Some people have been, we have somebody who's been on the school board for 20 years. I know people that have 15 years. That's a lot to ask of somebody to do a volunteer position where they can be, it's a lot of work, and I applaud those people for stepping up. But it's also a great opportunity to make sure that good voices are being heard. So these are some great resources if you're interested in running. Again, we'll also can find local progressive areas, and there's some online tools that we can get you involved in as well that'll help guide you basically. So there's some great guides here for running a school board. Run for Something has some regular, they have some regular like Zoom type meetings, so great to sign up for that. Again, even if you can't make it, you're going to keep hearing about them if you sign up. Red Wine and Blue Troublemaker Training. They also have some similar things about running for school board. Talk to school board members, get involved in your progressive groups. People will support you, I guarantee you. We did some great work on getting progressives elected in our last election. We have a much more diverse school board now, and I'm so proud of the people that are on there now that we got elected the last time. Some additional groups to join, again, some indivisible chapters. That Social Justice Alliance, that second link is, again, where Jim and I do on the third Saturday of the month, we do a remote call on related to this, and we find different ways on different action items, and we try to focus on different things. And NWSOFA is a group that we're in, and again, they do this 1-minute activist sometimes. So even if you're not local, you can assist with a phone call or maybe a witness list. Again, we're focusing on local elections because that's where a lot of this stuff is decided, and it's going to carry forward into the future. Super important. Background checks on candidates, nobody's doing them, I'm telling you. So you're the one that needs to be doing them. We're the ones who need to do that. And this is a great meme that has been going around. If enough of us start running for school board and showing up at meetings and pushing back, we can beat the book bannings. It requires organizing, but it can be done, and it is being done. I know some people have said, we've done all this. It's what else can we do? My answer is you keep doing it. You get more people to show up, and then you focus on the next school board election. That's the ultimate goal. In the meantime, know where you're at. Know if you're protecting something, or you're if you're on the other side and you need to change that school board. Small wins are still wins. And know that you're the one that we're waiting for. Every one of us. I mean, you guys showing up right now, getting this information, we're going to make the difference because we're showing up.
So yeah, let me add something to this. So in some of these previous meetings that Joyce and I have had, one of the questions is, well, I don't have any kids in school. You don't need to have kids in school. If you live in the community, you are entitled to go speak at that school board. And as Joyce said, if it's not your voice that's being heard, it's the other voice that's being heard. So you need to show up. And it might be a little intimidating at first, but don't worry about it. I mean, you just talk into the microphone, and you're 3 minutes. My school board, I get 3 minutes. Joyce's school board, she gets 5 minutes. But it's it's a great way to get to know. And I will tell you, the pro-COVID people show up at every school board meeting. Every school board. We stopped calling them anti-maskers or anti-vaxxers. We call them pro-COVID now. So, Sue, I guess we're open for questions.
Okay, thank you, Joyce and Jim. That was a lot of information, and we really appreciate the time that you've put in to gather all of this information and share it with us. One of the questions that came in was, what good is contacting the school board if they abide by a policy that prevents their members from speaking to the media? So the example is Minooka Community High School District 111, for example, have a policy that limits what the board is able to communicate. Basically, I think what I understand is that the board members can't communicate it, only the board president can.
They're still going to take votes, and a lot of the votes are going to be based on what they're hearing from the community. So I think it's still really important to communicate with them. And if they're getting, 50 people say, yeah, I don't want masks, and one person says, I do want masks, that's still going to say something to them. You need to provide them support, and you need to provide them cover. So it is important to show up for the school board. But the public comments are more for the community as much as for the school board.
I know one of the questions that our group talked about when we were putting this program together, one of the things we were wondering is, there's so much time and money being invested in this, and you've answered really who these groups are, some of the major groups that are behind this and what their ultimate goal is. But if we're trying to figure out where the money is coming from, or who's most active at our own school board meetings, I mean, what's the best way to do that?
You can usually tell who's showing up. I will say it's not easy, because they generally don't say what group they're part of. But one of the things that Joyce and I have done, so this meeting on February 19th will be our 7th installment. What we've talked about in the previous 6 is all the dark money groups that are funding all of these. Coke is just one of them. I mean, there's so many, not just in Illinois, but across the United States. The money's coming in from everywhere. And the thing you have to remember is it's just not local money. It's national money coming in, funding these groups. So from that standpoint, we're at a disadvantage, because we don't have anybody. This is just Joyce and me. So, so we're doing the best we can. But let me offer this. One thing that helps us a lot is we get links from people like you sending to us to say, hey, I just saw this about this school board, or I just saw this about this group. Send those links to us. Just put disinformation in the subject so we can sort it out. But I tell you what, I get those things, and in every article there's multiple links, and I check every one of those links out, and I pull this stuff out. So it's so important, and it's changing every week. It's changing. That's why Joyce and I do this every month.
Is it possible to find who's funding a particular group? So if there's a particular local group that shows up at your board, and you find out what their name is, can you find out who's funding them?
You could do some quick searches. You'd be surprised how many people don't lock down their social media, and you can find out who they're affiliated with. If you're looking, I lock it down, but a lot of people don't, and you can figure out who they're affiliated with. Honestly, if you have people willing to go into some of those open groups, like Everything Schaumburg, Everything, whatever, those different local groups, you get a sense. It does take some time. Some school board members who are getting a lot of money from bigger groups, they'll have to disclose that, so you can find that out. If your local Republican or Democrat groups are online, if they have meetings online, or they're going to have public meetings, you can show up and see who's showing up, which school board members are showing up there. And look for like their shirts or whatever. Look at like, yeah, get names, start tracking the names and figure out who they're with.
Why don't school board meetings limit attendees to only people from the local community?
I believe there's an Open Meetings Act that is probably prohibits that. I don't believe you can even prohibit people from speaking if they're not in your community. Some board members will say, we would like for you to say if you're in the community or not, but it's still up to you, but they cannot prohibit people from speaking.
Don't the local media persons attend and report? So it seems like, is it enough to think that maybe it'll be covered by the local media?
Not really. We used to, I was attending school board meetings so often that I got to know a couple of the local reporters, and we would exchange emails. They no longer show up. With the pandemic, newspapers have had to cut back. So these people don't show up at the school board meetings anymore, at least at mine. So, I mean, I used to know who they were. I'd go talk to them, but not anymore.
Yeah, and there are a couple that I see regularly in the Herald who do print stuff. Yeah, but feel free to contact them and let them know if something is critical you would like them to show up at. I don't know, you know, there probably are very few of them to cover a lot of these, and there is a lot happening, and there's a lot of ugliness right now. But I think it's a great idea to reach out to them and let them know what's happening and ask if they show up. When we had the lawsuit that was filed against the masks, the other side, they had Fox News show up. So we knew something was going to happen. So we were expecting that.
I think you already answered this, Jim, but are there any larger groups? Are there any national groups that are working to combat these issues, you know, at a larger level? We can't surely be the only ones that are seeing this since it's in the national news.
There are. One of the things that we did last night is, so we're part of Indivisible, which is a national organization. Two of the founders, we had one of the founders on a call with us last night, Ezra Levin, and what we were talking to him about is we want to take what Joyce and I do to a national level, because we get so much input from people all over the state. For example, we did a presentation in partnership with Illinois Families for Public Schools on January 27th. We had over 650 people on that call. We had over 13 states represented. Many of the people that signed up didn't fill in all the information. So my assumption is we had more than 13 states. So Joyce and I, we're going to continue doing this, but I don't know of any national group that is really funding or in trying to get this information out right now. Joyce, I mean.
Yeah, and I will say Chris Hayes on MSNBC is doing a pretty good job of bringing attention to this. But yeah, as far as really supporting, we keep trying to push that up the chain in our organization to say we have to recognize this at a higher level because it's happening everywhere. One other thing I did want to mention, at our school board, we have teachers showing up. Work with your teachers union, work with your teachers. Huge support them. And they need it as much as your school boards need it. Support your teachers. And you know, when they show up, it just amplifies our message and our support for honesty in education.
And what I'm going to suggest for this, for our group, especially the folks that are already involved in AAUW, is that each local AAUW form a task force of 2 or 3 or 4 interested people or whatever, and pick something off the list, whether it's monitoring and going to school board meetings or writing a letter to the editor or whatever. There's something that everybody can do. And I think it should carry some weight coming from AAUW as an organization because we've been supporting education for so long. So we have a legitimate voice. We also have support for public education in our public policy statement for AAUW nationally. I'll actually put some of that wording in the follow-up to this meeting, but one of the statements is that we believe a high-quality public education is the foundation of a democratic society and the key to improving economic prosperity and gender equality.
Perfect.
So this is right up our alley.
Yeah, and let me offer this. If any of you, and I hope a lot of you do, take up some of the suggestions that Joyce had. If you do that, if you are successful speaking, if there's an issue that you find at your school board, let us know. And what we would like to do is have you on one of our future Saturday calls to tell everybody else about your success or the problems you ran into. Because until we all start talking, that's the key. We have to start talking, everybody, and communicating.
Well, thank you very much. We'll wrap it up here. I know this has really opened a lot of eyes and ears to things that are going to be going on and are going on. So I want to thank you, both of you, again, for all of your time and the effort that you put into this. I know it's a real dedication effort. You're doing this as volunteers, and we appreciate that you are doing this. And thank everybody on the call who joined us tonight. I hope you picked up some good ideas. I hope you're fired up and you're ready to take some action. And we will see you next time on our next AAUW program.